In a time when the world was ruled by empires and kings held the lives of men in their hands, the land of Egypt flourished under the Nile's blessing. But beneath the wealth and majesty of its golden palaces, a silent cry rose from the shadows. The Hebrews, descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, had become slaves. Their hands built cities they would never own. Their children were born into chains, and the Pharaoh, fearing their growing numbers, issued a decree so cruel that even the winds whispered of sorrow. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile. It was in this darkness that light was born. A Levite woman named Jochebed gave birth to a son. For 3 months she hid him, heart pounding with fear each time Egyptian soldiers passed. She saw something divine in his eyes, something pure, chosen. When she could no longer hide him, she prepared a basket from reeds, sealed it with tar, and placed the child inside. With trembling hands and tearful prayers, she set him adrift on the river that was meant to take his life, but the Nile did not swallow him. It carried him to the daughter of Pharaoh, who had come to bathe. When she saw the child crying, her heart was moved with compassion. She knew he was a Hebrew. Still, she took him in, raising him in the palace as her own. And so Moses, the child of slaves, grew up as a prince. In Pharaoh's house, Moses wore fine linen and walked halls carved in gold. He learned the language of rulers and the strategies of war. But the blood in his veins remembered the cries of his people. Even though he lived among the powerful, he did not forget the faces of the poor. One day, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. The rage in his heart boiled over. He looked both ways, and seeing no one, he struck the Egyptian down. The man died, and Moses buried his body in the sand. Word of the murder spread quickly. Pharaoh was furious. Moses, now hunted, fled into the wilderness. He crossed the hot deserts of Sinai and came to Midian, where he found rest near a well. There, he defended the daughters of a priest named Jethro from raiding shepherds. Grateful, Jethro gave Moses his daughter Zipporah in marriage. Moses became a shepherd. Years passed. The palace life faded. The past seemed like another life. But God had not forgotten. One day, while tending sheep on Mount Horeb, Moses saw something strange. A bush engulfed in flames, yet not consumed. He stepped closer. A voice called from the fire, "Moses, Moses." "Here I am," Moses answered. "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground." God revealed himself, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He had heard the cries of his people. He had seen their suffering, and he was sending Moses to lead them out. But Moses hesitated. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" God replied, "I will be with you." Still Moses questioned, "What if they do not believe me?" God gave him signs. His staff turned into a serpent and back. His hand became leprous and healed again. Yet even with these miracles, Moses feared his own voice. "I am slow of speech," he said. God answered, "Who gave man his mouth? Go, I will help you speak." But Moses begged again, "Please, send someone else." God grew angry but allowed Aaron, Moses' brother, to speak for him. And so the two returned to Egypt, not as slaves but as messengers of the Almighty. When Moses stood before Pharaoh, he spoke boldly, "Let my people go." Pharaoh laughed. He increased the burdens of the Hebrews. The people turned on Moses. His heart grew heavy. But God's plan had just begun. Then came the plagues. Water turned to blood. Frogs covered the land. Gnats swarmed. Flies filled the skies. Livestock died. Boils broke out on skin. Hail rained fire. Locusts devoured crops. Darkness fell like a blanket. But Pharaoh's heart remained hard. Then came the final blow. God warned Moses, the firstborn of Egypt would die. On one night, the angel of death would pass through. But the Hebrews were told to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood. When the angel saw the blood, he would pass over them. That night, Egypt wailed. From Pharaoh's palace to the lowest dungeon, death took every firstborn. Only then did Pharaoh release the Hebrews. They left in haste, free at last. The journey to the promised land had begun, but Pharaoh's fury returned. He sent his army to chase them. Trapped between chariots and the Red Sea, the people panicked. Moses lifted his staff. The wind howled, waters parted. The Hebrews crossed on dry ground. When the Egyptians followed, the sea returned, swallowing horses, chariots, and soldiers alike. Safe on the other side, the people sang. Miriam, Moses' sister, danced with tambourines. They were free. God had delivered them, but the desert was not easy. Hunger came. God sent manna from heaven. Thirst came. Moses struck a rock and water flowed. Still, the people complained. They longed for Egypt, forgetting their chains. At Mount Sinai, God called Moses higher. The mountain shook. Thunder rolled. Moses entered the cloud, standing in God's fire for 40 days. There he received the 10 Commandments, laws to shape a holy people. But below, the people grew restless. They made a golden calf. They bowed to it. They called it their God. When Moses returned and saw the idol, he shattered the stone tablets. Fire burned in his eyes. Judgment fell. The golden calf was ground to dust. Yet God showed mercy. Moses returned to the mountain and received the law again. A covenant was formed. For 40 years they wandered, through rebellion, battles, and miracles. Moses led. He grew older. His face began to shine from being near God. Still, the people often rebelled. At last, they stood on the border of the promised land, but Moses would not enter. One act of disobedience had cost him that reward. On Mount Nebo, God showed Moses the land. He saw the hills, the rivers, the promise. Then, like Enoch before him, God called him home. Moses died alone, but not forgotten. God buried him. No one knows the place. He had been a prince, a shepherd, a prophet, a leader, but more than all, he had been God's friend.